season, write this down. I'm staying at my parents' house, and the road not taking looks real good now. 'Tis the damn season, write this down, and the road not taking looks real good now. Time flies, messy as the mud. Hello everybody! If you celebrate Christmas, happy Christmas Eve. If you celebrate Kwanzaa, happy Kwanzaa Eve. I think that Hanukkah's over. I should probably know because I'm Jewish, but I'm afraid I don't. Anyway, no matter what you celebrate, I hope you're having a lovely holiday, festive season, that the sun is out. Sure isn't here, but I've tricked you into thinking it is by opening every window in my house. In celebration of today's date and the general holiday spirit, today I'm going to be talking to you all about Dash and Lily's Book of Dares, the book, versus the show, which is now new on Netflix. I guess it's been out for a little bit, but you know, late to the party. Although I haven't seen a video about this, so maybe I'm early for a change. There will be spoilers, so if you're into that, do stay. If you're not, I entirely understand, and enjoy the rest of your holiday day. Dash and Lily's Book of Dares is a book I believe was written by Rachel Cohn. I feel like there was another author whose name I will insert here somewhere. And it follows our two main characters whose names are aptly Dash and Lily. Dash and Lily live in New York City, and that's a big part of the book because it's important not only to the plot, but also a bit to the character's identity and even to their relationship. I will begin by saying that both Dash and Lily in the show have an incredible sense of style. Dash wears like pea coats and stuff. I feel like he's the kind of teenage boy who you just know instinctively is gonna be an English teacher when he grows up. Whereas Lily makes all of her own clothes. She's pretty spunky, creative, a little bit of not like other girls-ness in the book, but again, they tone that down in the show, which I appreciated. Lily is also the captain of her school's soccer team, but she's not popular, which was interesting to me because in my American public high school experience, if you play soccer, you are popular. But again, that is just my experience. The premise of the book is that Lily's parents have gone off to Fiji for the holidays, and that's really great for them and she's happy for them, but also she's pretty upset because the holidays and Christmas are her favorite times of the year and she loves being with her family for them. Her brother Langston is also home with her. He is, I believe, a college dropout from NYU. Don't worry, it all works out in the end for him and his college experience, but he has a boyfriend, so he's not feeling too lonely, he's okay, but Lily is feeling quite downtrodden, quite isolated, a very universal feeling at the moment. And so Langston has this idea that Lily should write in a red moleskin notebook some dares for someone to follow. So she follows his advice, she writes down some dares, she writes out kind of clues to discover who she is, how they should meet up, things like that, and she sticks it in the shelf of her local bookshop, hoping a teenage boy will come and pick it up.
You're in your favorite bookstore, and there is a red notebook. Do you dare?
And sure enough, one does, and his name is Dashel. Have you ever met someone named Dashel? I don't know, I haven't. But because they both have an affinity for books, he happens upon the notebook. They start this kind of relationship through the notebook. They go on a bunch of fun events that they plan for one another. They never meet up. Dash doesn't reveal his name to Lily. There's a bit of mystique. There's some intrigue. It's a good time. Now that we've got the basic plot and premise out of the way, let's get into the details of the book versus the show. I did watch the show first, so do keep that in mind. I am biased. I think the show is infinitely better, which is strange because usually I experience the exact opposite thing. A key difference to me is actually just the main characters and what they look like in the show. Dash looks pretty much like I expected he would look, just kind of like a pretentious white boy in New York City, a little moody, you know. I did like his character though, all jokes aside. Lily is described as having black glasses and being blonde with kind of like poofy hair, but her fashion sense is continuous between the book and the show. She's quite a quirky dresser, which I love. I really enjoy that. Now, when shows, especially on Netflix, change the appearance of characters, I often get a little bit suspicious because I really worry that companies think it's okay to like just change the race or ethnicity or nationality of a character and say, oh, look at us, diversity. We've achieved diversity. We've done it. And elements of their cultural identity are often ignored. Usually it's tokenism at the end of the day. That's one of my biggest pet peeves in media because I think it's a little bit counterproductive in my ultimate goal, aim, dream of, incorporating actual diversity and a true range of characters into visual media. However, I don't feel like they did that in the show, which is actually pretty impressive for Netflix Christmas movies / shows. They actually do incorporate some of Lily's culture into the show, which is really cool. For example, on New Year's Eve, her family all goes to a temple that's traditional on her mom's side of the family, and they have actual traditions and stuff that pertain to their culture. So it wasn't just an instance of person of color, we did it. The next difference between the book and the show that I want to talk about is actually really interesting to me because I did read a blog post on this a little earlier in the month, and the blog post was about how the book's cute, Dash and Lily are cute, but they're horrible to people working in retail or customer service employees. Which is fair. As I mentioned, in the story, the red moleskin plays a big part in their developing relationship, but Dash and Lily don't ever meet, which means that they rely on other people to transport the journal, the notebook, the moleskin back and forth. In the book, it's much more friends and family members that are in charge of this, which is still kind of like, oh, but it wasn't too bad in the book. Like, I got why the people were helping them. In the show, there was like a random hot dog vendor that was in charge of transporting the notebook back and forth. There was a mall Santa, who we later learn is a part of Lily's family, but the mall Santa scene is something else we'll talk about in just a little bit. There were just a bunch of random customer service employees that the two kind of grouped into their adventure, which is all nice and romantic, but then you remember, oh, it's New York, and it's almost Christmas. And I would imagine, I don't live anywhere near New York, but I would imagine that Christmas time there is a little chaotic, especially if you're working in retail, because materialism, consumerism, yeah. The sun! Anyway, in the show there definitely was an element of, oh, these are just a bunch of really privileged high schoolers taking advantage of retail workers during the holiday season, and that isn't nice. Again, in my opinion, that's a petty complaint just because this is fiction, It's fun. It's happy-go-lucky holiday writing. But I did want to talk about the Santa scene in particular. So in both the book and the show, the guy that plays Santa is the Macy's Santa, who does like the holiday workshop, Buddy the Elf kind of guy.
You disgust me. How can you live with yourself?
So he is actually a family member or a family friend of Lily's family, so it makes sense why he would want to help her in both situations. Let's talk about the one in the show first. Santa, Uncle Sal, Lily's uncle or friend uncle, I'm not sure which, has the red notebook to give to Dash, but Dash needs to somehow get it from said Santa, and the holiday elves will not let him in Santa's workshop because he is clearly not 12 and under. Also, can we talk about, just really briefly, how 20-year-olds play teenagers all the time in Netflix films? Okay, I digress. So in the show, Dash proceeds to do the most rational thing, and he does this.
Oh, he stole Santa's hat!
That's a prime example of that blog post's problem with the story. It's definitely like the epitome of abusing retail workers. Imagine having to clean that up. In the book, this does not happen, but there is still a Santa scene. In the book, Dash waits in line for his turn to see Santa. He does have a bit of a spat with one of the holiday elves, but nothing major, nothing like present shredding, fake tree flying, nothing of that sort. Oh hi. But in the book, Uncle Saul, who plays Santa, kind of feels Dash up a little bit, and Lily assures him later that it's nothing sexual, but there's just something a little off to me about having a touchy Santa at Macy's. I don't know. I feel like that wouldn't happen. It just felt a little icky, and I know it was meant to be funny. I get that. I think that the show made the right choice in not having Santa feel up 17-year-old boys, and I think that scene went a lot smoother in the show than in the book. There are definitely many more differences I could talk about, which I will list here. But the last one I want to talk about today, before we get into some technical, geeky, filmish stuff, is the ending of the story. So, the show ends with the romantic date that Dash has set up for Lily in the Strand, which is the bookshop where they initially met through the red moleskin. Very cute, but then they get locked in, so they have to spend the whole night together. It's New Year's Eve, they share a sweet little peck, it's a good time. But I think it's important to note that the reason that this scene is so special and the adrenaline behind it is the fact that Lily is moving to Fiji. She's literally in the car on the way to the airport when she hops out to go on this date with Dashiell. So let's rewind a bit. When Lily's family, meaning her mom and dad, go to Fiji for the Christmas time, they tell their daughter that it's because they never had a proper honeymoon, so this is their, like, second honeymoon. This is how they're making up for the time they didn't have when they were younger. They've actually gone to Fiji to see if it's somewhere that they could live, where they could continue to raise Lily, where she could experience her senior year of high school, because her dad has gotten a job offer there. But Lily doesn't know this. She doesn't know that her parents want them to move to Fiji, so she's just happy-go-lucky for most of the book. When she does find out in the novel, she is reasonably upset, but it doesn't really come up to the extent it does in the show. In the book, the date that she has with Dash is just that. It is a date. It's not a last minute, I need to give you a kiss on New Year's Eve before you leave for Fiji, which is, you know, an entirely different country, obviously. But surprisingly, despite the fact that there was more adrenaline and maybe risk involved with Dash and Lily's meeting in the show, they had way less chemistry than Dash and Lily in the book. In the book, this date, which is also at the Strand bookshop, is much cuter. They have much more chemistry. They quip back and forth, they joke, they're silly, they're cute, they're high school rom-com-y. In the show, it is not so. They have great chemistry when they're not on screen together, but I don't think the actors actually meshed too well in real life, and I did find the ending to be a bit anticlimactic, though it was still sweet and Christmassy. The factor that causes the watcher or reader's heart to race a little bit, to get nervous for these characters, to really empathize with them, it's different between the book and the movie, and the book actually, in my opinion, did it a little bit better. Although the movie was more realistic and what I think a high school junior's reaction would be in being told they're moving to Fiji for their senior year. Overall, I really liked the show. I really enjoyed it. I watched it during finals week when I was kind of drowning in work, and it was a great stress reliever, and I think it's perfect for the holidays. I think it is exactly what you would expect it to be, if not a little better. The book, on the other hand, I found completely forgettable. I really commend the show for taking it further and building upon it and making it better. Although I will say, the prison scene with the dog in the book is funny. If you've seen it, read it, good grief, I'm getting confused. If you've read the book, you know what I'm talking about. To close this video, I wanted to point out something petty and funny. To me, anyway. I don't know. If you find it funny, that's great too. But this show had incredible editing. As someone who wants to go into film, I really have destroyed myself for movies and shows. I spend the entirety of the time I watch The Crown noting camera movements and wide shots and cinematography and clever edits and close-ups, and it's really horrible. It's fun to know how things are going on behind the scenes, but it really takes me out of the story, which sucks. But other times, it can be really funny. For example, as I mentioned, Dash and Lily's Book of Dares, the TV show on Netflix, really well edited, really clever cinematography, really served the purposes of the show. However, they went from doing incredible edits like this.
You told me something personal, something that hurt. So I guess I owe you the same.
To things like this.
Her name's Lily.
I like that name.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, me too.
Where they literally inserted the wrong B-roll. And again, super petty, but it just made me laugh. Like when people are super good at editing and you can tell that like the editor is amazing at their job and they do really cool edits and then they do stuff like that, it just makes me chuckle because it reminds me that even though we often get really polished products from Netflix and shows like this that are really sweet but at the end of the day unattainable and unrealistic, there's people behind them, and I enjoy that a lot. I also think this is probably the perfect show for the current state of the world. It's New York in Christmas time. It's bustling, there are people, there's love in the air and joy and just, you know, everything the opposite of this year. But even though this holiday season, no matter what you celebrate, looks very different from the holiday in, say, Dash and Lily's Book of Dares, the book or the TV show, I hope you're all doing okay. I hope you're remembering to stay safe. I hope you eat delicious food that you cook yourself, and that maybe, oh my gosh, have you seen those McCormick ads? The spice company? I don't know, I thought they were cute. They were encouraging people to, the uncle to make the grandma's traditional recipe because the grandma couldn't be there because of COVID. I just thought it was sweet. Happy almost end of 2020, everyone. Happy holidays. And I am sending lots of digital hugs. Bye-bye.